the US dollar in relation to some African currencies. The US dollar's Nigerian exchange rate rose to 1,355 naira 5 kobo with a percentage of 0.25. The US dollar against the South African rand is at 15 rand per US dollar. The US dollar against the Zambian kwacha is at 18 kwacha per US dollar, down to 1.67%. The US dollars against the Egyptian pound is at 46 pound per US dollar, and the US dollars against the Algerian dinar is at 129 dinar per US dollar, down to 0.01%. The US dollars against the Angolan kwanza is at 922 naira per US dollar, up to 0.39%. To financial services, now, the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, has approved a license bureau de change to buy up to $150,000 weekly from banks to meet the legitimate need of Nigerians for foreign currency. The move aims to make dollars more available in the market while ensuring strict checks, reporting and transparency to prevent misuse. Now, to help us unpack what the CBN policy really means for businesses, the Naira, and everyday Nigerians, we are going to be joined by a forex and finance professional trader with a deep insight into the market. Hello, good afternoon, Mr. Joy.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us on African Economy.
Thank you for having me.
All right, let's start with the big picture. With the BDC now able to access up to $150,000 weekly, what do you make of the CBN's decision to allow licensed BDCs back into the official forex market? Would you describe this as a bold reform or a cautious adjustment? Hello, good afternoon, Mr. Joy. Are you with us? Network glitch is there. Hello, good afternoon, Mr. Joy. Hello, we're trying to reach our guest on the show. Hello, can you join us, Mr. Joy? We'll take a quick break from here to check the technical glitches there. When we return, we continue our interview. Stay with us. Thank you so much for staying with us. This is still African Economy, bringing you insight into business concerns. And now to financial services. Before the break, the Central Bank of Nigeria has approved a licensed bureau the change to buy up to 150,000 US dollars weekly from banks to meet the legitimate needs of Nigerians for foreign currency. Now, the move aims to make dollars more available in the market while ensuring strict checks, reporting and transparency to prevent misuse. Now, to help us unpack what the CBN policy really means for businesses, we are joined by a forex and finance professional trader with deep insight into the market. Good afternoon, Mr. Joy O'Makihi.
Yeah, good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
All right, let's start with the big picture. With the BTC now available to access up to $150,000 weekly, what do you make of the CBN's decision to allow licensed BTCs back into the official forex market?
Yeah, I think it's a very bold move by the government just to increase the number of dollars that you have in circulation. Now, giving the licensed BTC $150,000 every week, we create millions of dollars. We pump millions of dollars into the economy. Now, if you look at the laws of demand and supply, simply looking at it, you see that there's going to be more supply of dollars, and that's going to definitely bring down the value of dollars and increase the naira. Now, people who need dollars for tuition, medical tourism, people who need dollars to import raw materials, import goods for sale, we have to do that with, we have to have a lot of dollars available for them. And definitely, it will gradually begin to reduce the value of the dollar and beginning to increase the value of the naira. So I think that's a good move. We've never had any issues with policies. The only issues we have is long-term sustainability and implementation.
Talking about the policy strength, do you think the $150,000 weekly cap per BTC is sufficient to genuinely improve dollar liquidity?
Yeah, I don't think it is sufficient, but you also have to look at the Federal Reserve, the dollar reserve that the federal government have. Nigeria has about $41 billion in its dollar reserve. Now, you have to look at this policy in a long-term perspective. If they don't cap it at that amount, they will not be able to. After a while, you see that there's going to be a depletion of the foreign reserve, and that can also affect the economy in the long term. So the reason for that amount, I think it's okay, though it doesn't make much difference to big companies, big industries, but it does make a lot of difference to the small businesses, the people who need dollar, not very much of it, but a small amount. So yes, it's going to increase liquidity, but not very much. And when you look at our foreign dollar reserve, it's still okay to cap it at $150,000 weekly.
From a market's perspective, let's shift our attention to that. How could this move affect the naira in the short to medium term? What signal should investors be watching in the coming weeks in regards to this?
An improvement. Like I said before, it's not about the policy, it's about the implementation. Now, you can have situations where this money, so there's something that we call effective liquidity. You can have situations where the liquidity that is supposed to go into the market is not going into the market, even if the government keeps releasing $150,000 weekly to all licensed BTC. Now, but if you have an effective liquidity, which means that this dollar is not being hoarded and given to a specific people, if you properly implement the policy, what you're going to have is that there's going to be more dollars in the economy, which is going to be in circulation. Now, there will be no panic buying because investors already know that there will always be dollars weekly. There will be no panic buying, there will be no speculative buying. And then you start to see the naira will gradually begin to gain strength. People don't see the need to hold dollars. People don't see the need to want to buy speculatively. They now see that, okay, they can hold more to the naira. This creates an increased value for the naira, and the naira will begin to gain strength over the dollar gradually. So that's just how it works.
Okay. Also, the CBN introduced strict KYC, that's the Know Your Customer, and reporting requirement. Will these measures be enough to prevent hoarding and round-tripping? Hello, Mr. Joy. Hello, did you get the question? Okay, what we are talking about right now is the CBN's approval of the 150,000 US dollars weekly for the bureau, for the bureau de change, and he has been analyzing what this could mean for Naira and businesses and everyday Nigerians before the network glitches there. Okay, we'll look at all the concerns. We'll take a quick break from now and we'll look at all the concerns still on African economy. Stay with us. Network is really affecting us at this part of the world here. Okay, let's continue the conversation, Mr. Joy.
Anyway, thank you very much.
All right. I said before that the CBN has introduced strict KYC and reporting requirement. Will these measures be enough to prevent hoarding?
It can try. It can try. It can try. The KYC and other implementation policies can try. But like we know how the Nigeria economy work. Like I said before, we have a problem with implementation. Now, let's see how the BDCs are going to implement these rules and regulations given to them by the CBN. But on paper, yes, it's going to prevent hoarding and it's going to ensure that the policy is well implemented on paper. I think that's a step in the right direction on paper, like I said. But we still look forward to how effectively this will be implemented to avoid just so that we can see more of effect.
Before we let you go, let's picture this. Imagine a small business owner in Lagos who imports fashion items into Turkey, or a parent trying to pay school fees abroad. In the past, getting dollars wasn't easy. They could be, delays, higher rates in the parallel markets, or just uncertainty about whether the currency would even be available. Now with the licensed BDCs able to access up to 150,000 US dollars weekly from banks, it seems like things should be a bit more smooth and more transparent. But here's what I'm really curious about. Do you think this policy will genuinely make Forex more accessible and affordable for everyday Nigerians, or will it mostly benefit bigger market players?
Okay, although I was trying to hear you there, but if I get you correctly, you were wanting to know if this policy will make more dollars available for the
It,
everyday Nigerians.
exactly, exactly.
Okay, yes, yes. The fact that we are already aware that this policy exists, and the fact that we are even right now on Spectrum TV talking about this policy, we are making more Nigerians aware that this policy exists. So when they go to these BDCs and ask for dollars, if they are not getting it, of course, a number of them will raise alarm, and it will beam the searchlight on these BDCs to be sure that they are actually giving the dollars to Nigerians that need it. So I think that's one aspect to look at. More orientation for Nigerians to know that yes, BDCs are getting $150,000 weekly to make available for Nigerians that might need these dollars. Definitely, there's going to be an improvement. There's definitely going to be an improvement in what it used to be, but we might not get to 100% of the policy implementation just yet. But definitely, we are not going to be where we used to be. We can see like 40, 50%. There will be more dollars available definitely from these BDCs moving forward. But it might not be just the entire $150,000 that it gets. Of course, we might still see some BDCs trying to hoard, trying to give out to certain people, trying to sell to some people in the black market. But definitely, we are going to see an improved condition of what the system was. Maybe not at 100% yet, maybe at 50, 60%, but there should be an improvement, and dollars will be more available to Nigerians that need to pay for medical tourism, that need to pay for school fees abroad, and need to pay for importation of raw materials or finished goods.
Thank you so much for your insight. In summary, what you're saying is that while the CBN's policy provides more structured access to dollars and improved transparency, its real impacts will depend on compliance and proper implementation. Thank you so much, Mr. Joy Omakehe, for breaking this down so clearly.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right. Okay, away from that, mining production in South Africa rose by 2.5% in December 2025, following a downwardly revised 2.4% slump in the prior month, with manganese ore at 40.4% and 16.7%, and iron ore at 19% and 7.6% contributing the most. Output also increased significantly for other metallic minerals at 27.3% and 14.9%, nickel at 6.6% and 3.2%, chromium ore at 15.5% and 0.3%, and other non-metallic minerals at 10.4%, as well as 3.3%. On the other hand, decreases were seen for diamonds at 35.8%, PGMs at 7.7%, coal at 5.7%, and copper at 1.5%. On a seasonally adjusted monthly basis, mining production fell by 1.2% after a downwardly revised 5.7% decline in the previous month. Total mining production was 0.1% higher in 2025 compared with 2024. Manufacturing activity in South Africa fell by 1.4% year-on-year in December 2025, extending a two-month downturn following an upwardly revised 2% decline in November. Food and beverages at 4.6% and 1.4%, beg your pardon, percentage point, wood and wood product, paper, publishing and printing at 5.2%, 0.6% point, and basic iron and steel, non-ferrous metal product, and machinery at 2.3% and 0.4% were the largest contributors to the decline. On a seasonally adjusted monthly basis, I beg your pardon, output decreased by 1.2% after an upwardly revised 2.1% slump in the previous month. In 2025, total manufacturing production shrunk by 1.3% compared with 2024. And now to the petroleum sector. The Dangote oil refinery, which holds the distinction of being the largest single-train refinery in the world, is currently operating at its full capacity to 650,000 barrels per day. The refinery relayed that these achievements represent a milestone that no other single-train refinery globally of its size has ever hit, following the successful restoration and optimization of its crude distillation unit and motor spirit production block. A 72-hour intensive performance test run in collaboration with its licensor UOP is set to commence to validate operational stability, efficiency and adherence to international standards, per a statement released by the company. This step follows a planned maintenance exercise on the crude distillation unit and MS block, according to the managing director of the refinery, David Bird. The teams have demonstrated exceptional precision and expertise in stabilizing both the CDU and MS block, and they are pleased to see them functioning at optimal efficiency. The managing director also disclosed that the refinery's remaining processing unit would start their own Phase 2 performance test runs in the coming week, indicating the completion of technical validation throughout the integrated complex. Since its inauguration, the Dangote refinery is hastening its pace in ensuring that the refinery runs at full capacity. Still in Nigeria, Africa's quest for energy security and economic transformation is gaining renewed momentum, with the Nigerian-Morocco gas pipeline and the expansion of the West African gas pipeline emerging as strategic anchors for continental integration. Speaking at the 2026 International Energy Week in London, the group Chief Executive Officer of NNPC Limited, Engineer Bashir Ojulari, underscored the urgency of accelerating cross-border gas infrastructure to lay the foundation for Africa's shared prosperity. He identified the Nigeria-Morocco gas pipeline and the expansion of the West African gas pipeline as flagship projects capable of unlocking scale, efficiency and resilience across regional energy markets. Ojulari stressed that shared infrastructure, policy alignment and coordinated investment frameworks among African national oil companies are essential to securing the continent's energy future. According to him, harmonized pricing systems, transit protocols and joint technical regulations will reduce investment friction, safeguard cross-border assets and ensure equitable access to shared energy resources. Beyond infrastructure, he called for structured joint investment platforms, arguing that Africa can attract and deploy capital more effectively when collectively rather than individually. Framing gas as the backbone of Africa's industrialization, Ojulari maintained that expanding production responsibly while strengthening environmental accountability will position the continent as both an engine of development and a responsible global energy partner. The annual inflation rate in Namibia edged down to 2.9% in January 2026, the lowest level since February 2021 from 3.2% in December. This marks the third consecutive month of slowing inflation, mainly on accounts of food and non-alcoholic beverages at 1.9% and 2.6% in December. Education at 2.4% and 4.3%. Hotels, cafes and restaurants at 3.6% and 4.2% versus 4.3%, as well as miscellaneous goods and services at 1.5% and 2.8%. In the meantime, communication prices decreased at 1.4% after 0.1% a rise in the month before. On a monthly basis, the CPI rose by 0.8%, accelerating from 0.1% increase in the prior month. Let's turn our attention now to the petroleum sector, where Nigeria has retained its position as Africa's largest crude oil producer after raising output to 1.45 million barrels per day in March. According to the latest monthly report, the figure marks an increase from the 1.42 million barrels per day recorded in December 2025, based on data obtained through direct communication with Nigerian authorities. However, OPEC noted that March outputs declined to 2.11% month-on-month, underscoring the volatility that continues to shape global oil market. Despite the marginal dip, Nigeria maintained its lead on the continent ahead of Libya, which posted production of 1.37 million barrels per day during the same period. The figures affirm Nigeria's strategic importance within Africa's energy landscape and the wider OPEC alliance. And now for Ethiopia. Ethiopian Airlines, Africa's largest and most profitable carrier, has reported a $4.4 billion in revenue for the first 6 months of its 2025 to 2026 financial year, equivalent to roughly $4.5 billion in 2026 when adjusted for inflation. Speaking to journalists in Addis Ababa, Group Chief Executive Officer Mefin Tasiu said the performance marked a 14% increase compared with the same period last year and exceeded internal projections. The airline carried 10.64 million passengers across its domestic and international network during its reporting period, underscoring its position as a key connector between Africa and the rest of the world. Cargo operations also remained robust with 451,000 tons transported in 6 months, reinforcing Addis Ababa's growing status as a continental logistics hub. Ethiopian Airlines now serves 145 international destinations, including 3 new launch routes, and it continues to expand its global footprint. Lastly, an African economy. Senegal has established itself as an emerging oil and gas producer with major offshore projects like the BP-led Greater Tortue Ahmeyim field and Woodside Energy Group's Sangoma project driving its development. The country is looking to leverage its progress with $100 million investment aimed at accelerating onshore oil and gas exploration, further boosting its production capacity and solidifying its position in the global energy market. Despite relatively modest proven oil reserves of around 1.3 billion barrels. The country's offshore fields, particularly Greater Tote, Amayem and Sangoma, are expected to significantly boost production. In addition to oil, the West African nation holds substantial natural gas reserves, estimated at around 450 billion cubic feet, which are vital for its ambitions in the global LNG market. These developments position the country as a key player in both the oil and gas sectors. And that brings us to the end of today's edition of African Economy. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to follow us across all our social media channels at Spectrum TV Live. Remember, African Economy airs live every Tuesday and Thursdays at 2:30 p.m. Until next time, keep thinking growth, keep thinking progress, because this is where Africa's economy speaks. I am Uwang Fonabasi. Goodbye, Africa.